Imagine you are a spy. You are running for your life. If they caught you, you will be dead, or something worse would happen. You were hiding in the trunk of a car. You were meters away from being free. You were waiting for a signal telling you that yes, you are safe. Suddenly, you heard music, French horns, tuba. The rhythm gives you goosebumps because you recognize the music. It was Finlandia by Sibelius. You realized you are free. You escaped because you are now in Finland. The music of Finlandia was the prearranged signal indicating that you succeeded. I didn't make this up. Sometimes history is simply better than fiction. Hello, welcome back to my channel. I have never thought about doing this video because today we are talking about a history book that was hailed as the greatest espionage story of the Cold War. Yes, it was literally the name of the book. I said I never thought about doing this video because frankly I didn't even remember reading this book. It was a great book, but I just put it behind me. I first read it in my parents' house. My dad bought it, he read it, he thought it was wonderful, so I picked it up. It left indeed a fantastic impression, but I just never thought about talking about it in front of the camera. I just put it behind. Until this weekend, this passing weekend, my dad sent me the news that the real person in this story, the protagonist, died at the age of 86. Both my parents and myself, all three of us, read the book. First my dad, then me, then we practically forced my mom to read it. We absolutely loved it. We even played the recording of Finlandia a few times at home just because of this magnificent story. So after reading about this news, then I remember I did read a book about this spy story. Maybe I should do a video about this book, just because you don't come across with such a great story every day. The book's name is The Spy and the Traitor, the Greatest Espionage Story of the Cold War by journalist and author Ben Macintyre. The book was published in 2018. It was ranked one of the best books of the year by The Economist. And the legendary spy fiction author John le Carré commented that it's the best true spy story I have ever read. The book tells the complete life story of senior KGB officer Oleg Gordievsky, who was the highest ranking KGB officer to ever defected to Britain. On March 21st, 2025, he died in England. The media said it was a natural cause. Now, I know we don't really talk about history and politics on this channel, so we'll be focusing on this book. The first and the only thing you need to know about this book is it's written in a way that it was so graphic, so fluent, so absorbing that reading it felt like watching a movie. I read this book maybe 5 years ago. I don't even have the hard copy with me now because it was in my parents' house. I still remember the opening of this book. Gordievsky was coming back to his home in Russia, but before he stepped into his own house, KGB sent officers inside, setting up surveillance and bugs. On the other occasion, when Gordievsky was first approached by the MI6, they found him in a stadium playing badminton. The book gave specific details about the stadium, how quiet it was, the concrete wall, the plastic playground, the sound of someone stepping closer to you. Their first encounter was very polite, restrained, almost like the first glance between a man and a woman. The author Macintyre even made a joke in this book saying being a spy is very much like courting a woman. Distance and uncertainty will always bring out more enthusiasm. Because of this, the writing style and the plots of this story, the history, we as readers were pushed into God's mode from the very beginning, from the first page. We all know by now that Gordievsky was a double agent, that we all know it was only a matter of time that the Russians found out about him. But we didn't know how it would all end, what happened in between. Hence the tension from the very beginning. We, as readers, were always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Gordievsky worked for MI6 for 11 years. How did he cheat his KGB colleagues? When KGB found out that he was a spy, how could the MI6 get him out of the country? And of course, the other shoe always drops. In 1985, Gordievsky was summoned back to Moscow and being questioned for betraying his country. So before that, the KGB sent him to work in London. He was released, but he knew it was time to run. According to the evacuation plan he made with MI6, he needed to show up in a bakery, I think it was a Tuesday afternoon, with a gray hat and a plastic bag with a certain supermarket logo. A MI6 agent would walk past him with a Mars chocolate bar in his mouth. The name of this chapter is called A Plastic Bag and a Mars Bar. If they recognized each other, that means he sent a signal to MI6 that he needed to run, and they need to help him escape the country, otherwise he would die or something worse would happen. During the process of fleeing Russia, so many details that I cannot name in this video happened. I said I cannot name them because it was such an enchanting story with so many plots and specific details and names and items that a video simply couldn't get it all. How did a diaper save his life? How long did he actually run in the woods for his life? I really should let you dig into this because, trust me, watching a video about this book is not nearly as close, as good as actually reading it. Also, I remember my mom read the story and then she told me that, you know what, a person really needs to get his exercise because there must be a time in your life that you're going to run for your life for quite a while and it's better to get prepared. What I can tell you is the execution of the evacuation plan was how we ended up having the scenario I described at the beginning of this video. It was also a great example of how the author Macintyre used simple but powerful words to take us back to the scene. Macintyre wrote in a sharp and straight style. I guess also it's because it's a nonfiction. He didn't use any poetic or a lot of adjectives. He just laid out all the facts, but with a lot of powerful quotes. During the moment of life and death, he wrote, "They were now technically in Finland, but two more hurdles remained: Finnish custom and immigration and Finnish passport control. It will only require one simple telephone call from the Soviet to turn them around. The Finnish customs officers studied the driver's document and then point out that his car insurance would be out of date in a few days. The agent remonstrated that they would be returning to the Soviet Union before that. The official shrugged and stamped the document. Gordievsky felt the driver's door closed and a joint as the car moved off again. Suddenly, classical music was blasting out of the tape deck at top volume. No longer that soapy pop of Dr. Hook, but the swirling sounds of an orchestra piece he knew well. The agents could not tell their passenger in words that he was free, but they could do so in sound, with the haunting opening of a symphonic poem written by Finnish composer Sibelius in celebration of his native land. They were playing Finlandia. After this clip, Macintyre also quoted from the agents who helped him living. He wrote, "The scene that now played out was like a slow motion dream in silence. Brown and Price ran forward, the Danes held back. Brown opened the trunk of the car," the agent's name. "There lay Gordievsky, soaked in sweat, conscious but dazed. He was semi-naked in this pool of water, and I immediately felt it was like I was seeing a newborn child and some extraordinary rebirth. Now that is just a remarkable nonfiction. After he ran to Finland and eventually settled down in the UK, the book also spent quite a lot of chapters about his life in UK, how he communicated with the British officers, the Prime Minister, and how he warned them about Soviet's plan and all that. Other than being an amazing spy story, the book can also be seen as a vivid example and discussion of secrecy and humanity during unprecedented time. It also mentioned a lot of women and their contribution during the Cold War. There were multiple spies mentioned in the book from both countries. People betraying each other, people being drowned with the burden of lying. Gordievsky's secret life eventually destroyed both his family. He had been married twice, but he ended up being alone. He was seen as Britain's most valued Cold War KGB spy. When the news of his death broke, he made headlines again on every media outlet. But he was also extremely lonely, as he never reunited fully with his family again. I think they did manage to get his second wife and he had a daughter out, but he never spent much time with them and they eventually left separately. While this video had no intention to discuss history and or politics, I still think that it's a fantastic book to read. Whatever you think about Cold War, Soviet history, spy, and all that, as cold, dazzling, and magnificent as any spy novels can get you. As for all the characters, all the people mentioned in this story, let's just say human beings are amazingly complicated creatures. There were a lot of agents mentioned in the book, and you can tell each agent, each spy had their own style, their own secrecy, how their background, their upbringing made them and changed them as a spy. To that point, I think it's also a great book. Oh, come on, it's a real history book about the greatest spy story in the Cold War, with classical music as a plot. How can you not read that? I'm sold immediately. And I also think it would be a great idea to listen to Finlandia during reading this book. You know, just for the plot. Every time after reading this book, every time I heard this piece of music, I thought about the running, the escaping, how Gordievsky grew up in a very traditional Soviet patriotic house. Both his parents are very dedicated to their country. You couldn't help but wonder why did he do what he did. And the book might not give a specific answer to this question. I think it's still worthy to explore this question and get your own answer. The greatest spy of history. He might be loved and hated so much by two sides of people, but he was also incredibly lonely, and he did something that he paid his life for in a way. Like I said, human beings are amazingly complicated creatures. Thank you for spending time with me. I know it might be a short video because I really just want you to read the book. The book was so good. I have nothing else to say other than that it was a great book. Thank you for spending time with me. See you next week. Yeah.